You're going to see that the proper use of your bodies is a secret that has been kept from you for thousands of years, right? What is a mating system, right? Why is it important, right? Mating systems are very important. All animals have what are called mating systems, right? A behavioral system that we are using for selecting mates and having offspring, right? The actual definition is the primary way in which a group is structured in relation to sexual behavior, right? Pretty simple, pretty simple. The purpose of that mating system is to uphold culture, okay? Uphold the culture. Culture is woven into a society. Culture is what upholds that society. So it's not just about having kids, because you can't have functional kids if there's no culture behind them. You can't have functional relationships between man and woman, woman and man, if there are no cultural underpinnings to anchor those behaviors and encourage in fostering of that relationship, right? So when we begin to talk about sex and sexual orientation between two functional human beings, essentially we are talking about how to uphold our genes, our gene pool, from generation to generation. And the way that we protect that gene pool is to uphold the culture that supports that sexual practice and or i.e. behavior. Hope that makes sense. Okay, that's very, very important. When we want to chip away at the DNA and we want to destroy the DNA, what must we attack first? Well, the goal is, to take something natural, God's creation, right? A being that God has created, and then convert it into a synthetic state. In fact, that's what the whole war is all about, as we'll get into when we move forward. And just as it was in the beginning, so it is here in the end, right? If you can corrupt the woman, you can corrupt the female, the entire society will fall behind you, ladies. Okay? Ladies, you are an integral part to the proper functioning of a society. Okay? Regardless of the propaganda, they may have propagandized women and men to behave in certain ways. Even if you are not fed a steady diet of propaganda, right? There's still gender roles that men and women perform best at. And because the woman is the first teacher to the child, ladies, but you're the first teacher to that baby, right? If you are corrupted, so goes the nation. That's why women have to be provisioned and protected at all costs. Because the goal of this whole war that we're in, and you're going to realize as I go through this lecture, that we are in a full-blown war. It's been going on since the beginning of time. All right? You're going to see if we disrupt the natural state into a synthetic state, then the enemy wins. And that's what their goal is. All right? So you have to be provisioned and protected, not only from outside forces, ladies, but you have to be provisioned and protected from yourselves. Disrupt the natural state into a synthetic state. Natural woman, synthetic woman. That's where we've gone from. All right? And this is nothing new. So this shift from a natural, organic, wholesome women and men into these synthetic men who are transgenders or synthetic, men who are changing, ab implants and all this stuff, steroids. Okay, this is nothing new. Okay, same for women. This shift from natural born women into synthetic women is a plot and a plan that is being disseminated with great accuracy. Right, really important that you understand that. All right, and so the goal is to take Barbie and cut her up, take her to a plastic surgeon, get her a BBL, get her some breast implants, get some fat put in her thighs. All of this augmentation is taking God's natural creation and then corrupting into something synthetic. And that's what's going on. And so as you see these shifts and changes happening in the population of human beings, you're also seeing it happen with your foods. That's why I don't separate foods. All right. Each and every one of us put something in our mouth, related to food pretty much every day if you're not doing a fast. And so food and human progression and human physiology are one and the same. And so you're seeing this shift not only in the BBLs and the fake this and fake that, fake tits from women, but you're seeing it in the food as well. Grapes that actually have seeds that nourish the body and revitalize the body and give it key information to the body. Now the grapes don't have any seeds. They're turning us inside out. And that's the goal. All right? Pay attention. Same thing's happening with watermelon, right? Watermelon used to have seeds. Now watermelon don't have any seeds. Okay? Taking something in its natural state and converting it into a synthetic state. Same is happening with human beings, right? So in 1960, even though we were in a corrupted culture in terms of it being an indigenous culture, the culture still had the underpinnings and the necessary resources to maintain a functional family, regardless of the tremendous pressures and regardless of the torment that people of color experienced here under Jim Crow and under colonialism. We were still able to fortify a family. All right? And so keep this in mind as you move forward. If the culture is strong, right, the mating system will function normally. And regardless of an imperfect culture, such as maybe Western culture at the beginning for people of color during their sojourn here, or, foundational Americans during their sojourn, right? Even if the culture wasn't perfect, it was still strong enough to allow people of color to maintain an intact family structure. In fact, in the early 1800s, people of color had the highest marriage rates. Early 1900s, people of color had the highest marriage rates in the country. And then you saw a decline from that as we move forward. So if the culture becomes corrupted, then the output of the mating system will degrade, which ultimately destroy the gene pool, right? So you got a man, a father, a leader in 1960 with a wife, confidant, teacher to the children in 1960. And then in 2019, we see the woman again with the children, but no man. And so the missing link is to uphold that family. And if it's missing, then there are spiritual genetic consequences as a result. And there's a downfall of the family hierarchy and the gene pool when we do not have a functional system we're living in. This is just not in the United States. All right. This is all over the world. This is everywhere. Okay. You see a functional family, white family here, and then you see 1917, how men were dressing, and now 2017, look at this. I don't know what he's got on, but you can see that this shift away from traditional values has been a progressive process that's been happening within the culture. And so to preserve and protect the DNA is your goal. It is why you are in the war to begin with. And if you don't know you're in a war, you will by the end of these lectures. All right. So the goal of the culture, again, protecting the integrity of your DNA, it's always been intimately woven into your culture. You cannot have one without the other in a functional society. Simply said, right? It's not complicated. It is what it is, right? Now, the goal is to get at your genes, right? That's the ultimate goal. That's what the enemy wants, is your genes. All right. So what you're looking at here, you've probably seen this on your hospitals. You've probably seen this on, ambulance trucks, paramedics, EMS trucks, right? That's the caduceus. The caduceus is a staff with wings on it, and it's encircled with two serpents, right? This is a medical symbol, right? But it's not really a full medical symbol. What it is a DNA symbol. Okay, you cannot destroy the DNA unless you attack the culture first and remove the tradition. All right, and this is just a symbol, a placeholder for talking about your DNA. And that is what the war is really all about. Now, As I said, the culture has to be attacked in order to provide the counterfeit, in order to mimic what the original could be. So we have a man here. I'm not exactly sure which country in Africa it is. I want to say it's Ghanaian, but it may not be Ghana. But as you can see, the traditional family of the African man typically is polygamous, right? It's a polygamous tradition, polygamous culture, reinforces the protection of the DNA, reinforces the provision of male-female relationships, and produces lots of offspring, which is a genetic threat, right? So we have to remove the African, we have to remove this tradition of polygamy. We have to take what God has created, which is a polygamous system. If you go into the Bible, if you go into some ancient cultures around the world, Eastern cultures, Asian cultures, polygamy was the standard relationship. And now we've taken that, we need to destroy that, flip that upside down. And now, ladies, on the right hand side is what your alternative is today. So again, we're going to mimic what a natural functioning relationship should be into something else. That's the whole plot and plan of the system. Again, this is another culture, Malaysia. Here's a man's got 2 wives, okay? And the alternative is this here. I want you to resonate with that for a second, okay? Because one can produce offspring, which is the preservation of DNA, and the other cannot, right? It can look like a functional relationship on the outside. It can masquerade as if it is, but what is the product of that union? Okay, and we'll talk more about that when we get into Baphomet later, right? And it's not to say that the polygamous guy over here doesn't have problems. I don't want to come across as if that's some kind of a perfect relationship. But what I want to iterate here is that the functional relationship that you're seeing, as old as time itself, was the original form. And now we have a synthetic, a mimic, a counterfeit that is representing itself as the be all. That makes sense. All right. And the same for our food. And if you notice, as I go through this lecture, you're going to see me reference food a lot because food is a part of this. You see the men who are sharecroppers. You see the men who would tend to the land, grow their own food, harvest their own food, live off their own land, sell maybe some of their produce to the local community. They sustained themselves. They took care of themselves. And now you see most Americans, most people even in the world now, are going to a grocery store to supply their dietary needs, right? Why is that a problem? Well, obviously you can tell it's a problem because, again, it's breaking the tradition, breaking that tradition. And as we break that tradition, we're seeing a break in our DNA as a result. That makes sense, okay? Right? We want to get at that DNA. You have to get people off of their natural foods and consume synthetics. So you want to make the people look synthetic. You want to replace organic, God-created human beings with synthetic human beings who masquerade around as originals. And you do this by attacking the culture of food. Break the traditions, and then you overtake the culture and the DNA. Okay? You can't genetically modify someone if their culture and traditions are strong. You cannot genetically modify someone if their cultures and traditions are strong. Okay? Now, in modern society, we approach dating and sex casually. This is because the culture we have adopted today is displaced culture, not based on any of the core principles that propel a society into health. Just doesn't, right? Even the way that we date is synthetic, right? Hookup culture, right? We've lost our natural ability to select And we've been reduced to searching for love digitally instead of person to person, flesh to flesh. The dopamine hit we get from the dating apps, are destroying our oxytocin, our ability to bond, and your ability to pair bond with your potential mate once you find them. Okay, so dopamine has a limit. You can actually over trigger your dopamine in your brain, and if you over trigger your dopamine, it interferes with your oxytocin, ladies. So once you even meet the guy on the dating app, whether it's Tinder or Bumble, whatever one you're on, right? Once you even meet the guy, you've already been burned out biochemically from being capable of providing the best option for this man that you're trying to meet, or being your best self for this man that you're trying to meet, right? So we're dealing with a lot of problems here. Now, I go here because this deals with environmental memories that are passed on for 14 generations. Okay, scientists at the Center for Genomic Regulation in Barcelona, they found that in a nematode worm, that memories were passed on for 14 generations. And you probably saw one of our TikTok videos when we were talking about this, that genetic memory also occurs in human beings. It's not just worms. It's human beings that this occurs in. Okay, that memory is critical because the genetic memory serves as a placeholder and a protection for offspring further on down the line, right? How many of you have heard of chickens who instinctively know how to hide when they see a shadow come over their head from the sky? Or how many of you seen chickens just pause and freeze and won't even move if they perceive or see a hawk fly over their heads? And we're talking about chickens who've never spent any time, they're newborns, new hatched eggs. They instinctively know how to protect themselves from the environment. Well, the same for humans once we are returned back to our natural state. Okay, this is very, very important. So there are certain genetic triggers and genetic markers that we have as human beings that are not being fully exercised or regulated because we are not eating the right food and we are being genetically modified by the food that we eat. Okay, so scientists show that epigenetic memory across multiple generations is a real thing. So this is not any fakeness or fake news. This is the real deal. Human beings and animals have this capability, especially if the pineal gland is functioning properly. If your pineal gland is not functioning properly, you're eating the wrong foods, you're dating the wrong men, men dating the wrong women, you're not going to get there. Okay? All right? Not going to get there. Now, talking about dating, let's go back to this. This is just another schematic of that. Okay? Let's talk about perception and how men select to be with you or mate with you, ladies. This is really important. Okay? Because a lot of times in the new culture, in the synthetic culture, men are penalized for actually looking at women. So men, when they see a woman, they are visual. Men are visual because the way the cortex interprets your sexual health and your sexual intelligence is through visual cues. All right, I want to make this very clear. The way a man interprets your sexual health and your mental, right, your psychological health is through visual cues. Okay, and so they sum up your physical characteristic. Do you have a narrow waist, right? Do you have long legs, right? Medium, large breast. All those play an important role in determining the attractiveness and selecting a potential mate. Well, how can a man really do that in the real world if you're selecting each other over a dating app, where pictures can be filtered and pictures can be skewed and pictures are not actually the real representation of what they may look like, or you're getting catfished, right? So these visual cues need to happen in person as opposed to through a photograph. And there's a difference in how the brain perceives that information from a photograph versus the real live woman in front of them. So men look at your waist, men look at your legs, men look at your breast. That's the way that men actually assess your viability as a mate. Okay, this is scientific data. This is not, bro science. So male and female perception of physical attraction and eye movement study. They study how men look at women. When we see you ladies, we're looking at your tits. We're looking at your waist. We're looking at your ass. We're looking at your vagina. We're looking at how your body's shaped. We're looking at how tall you are. We're looking at how pretty you are in the face. Those visual cues tell us not only the sexual health of a female, right? How sexually healthy you are, which means or translates into how viable can you produce babies? How viable will those offspring be? That's how men select for mates. Remember, the whole point of this is proper mating selection. Okay? Proper mating selection. How men select for you is based on visuals. Okay? So you can't tell men in the new woke society, you're telling men not to look at women. It's microaggression if a man looks at a woman. You're being a microaggressor. It's rude. It's visual rape if a man looks at a woman's body. You're objectifying women. Men are supposed to objectify women. That's how we select mates. And how pretty your face is and how curvy your hips are give a genetic indication into how healthy your offspring will be. I bet you nobody ever told you that. So men are actually doing what they're supposed to do when they look at your ass, they look at your tits, they sum up your body. That's what we're supposed to do. That's how we figure out if you could actually give us healthy, functional children. All right? And we're going to get to the men in the next part of the lecture, but I just wanted to give this to the ladies so you can understand that, just because a man is staring at you doesn't mean he's trying to assault you or he's a microaggressor or whatever. He's just trying to figure out, could you give him healthy babies? Because mate selection, a big component of it is viable offspring. All right? Okay, so what happens if the women are not real? Which is what we're dealing with today, right? Breast implants, we're dealing with BBLs. The number one trait, as I said before, men to properly select a mate is being screwed up. We don't know what we're getting. We're on an app. So the offspring will not align with the mate selections. Okay, I want to repeat. Okay, there was a Chinese guy who, I think it was Korean or Chinese, and he met a girl. She's very pretty, beautiful eyes, beautiful body, yada, yada, yada. He marries her, and then he has a kid with her, and the kid comes out, doesn't look like the mom, doesn't look like the dad. He was thinking of maybe she cheated on him, maybe she had an affair. Well, it turns out they got the blood test, so the kid was his, but what it turned out was that his wife doesn't look anything like she looks. How she was born is not at all how she looked when he married her. She looked like 60 to 70% prettier than she looked when she was, born. And so his wife was catfishing him. And when you catfish people, you catfish DNA. Because how I know how my kids will look, I can only tell that by looking at your family, like your mom or your dad, and how you look. And the best source for that is looking at how you look in your face. Well, if your face is plastic and your butt is plastic and your tits are plastic, then I could potentially be giving my daughter no butt, no tits, simply because what you got is fake. So this is why we have to be careful when we're dealing with this synthetic, artificial, counterfeit lifestyle that we've adopted. It's very dangerous for our genetic viability.